European Union, in which we predicted that on a capitalist basis, capitalism is based upon anarchy, the anarchy of the so-called free market. Although, incidentally, what's free about the free market economy when they now depend entirely upon the money of the state? Where is the risk? The argument was that the capitalists deserve all these billions because they take a risk. Where's the risk? When the banks collapse and the state immediately is presented with the bill.
They nationalize the losses.
That's right. Nationalize the losses and privatize the profits. That's always the way with these gentlemen. But to go back to your point, we said that on the basis of capitalism, it is not possible to unify Europe. The contradictions between the national economies emerge. And we specifically said, I specifically wrote, over 10 years ago, it is impossible to unify economies which are pulling in different directions. We also predicted that this contradiction would emerge at the time of a recession, which is precisely what you've got at the present time. You see, obviously, where there's a boom, it's a bit like the American gangsters here in the gangster movies, in the Hollywood movies, you know. If there's plenty of loot, the gangsters can come to an amicable arrangement. But when there's not much loot available, they will fight for the possession of whatever there is. That's the position now. If I may, there's an interesting quote again from The Economist, which is hardly a left-wing journal, of the 6th of February of this year, which says the following: "The Greek crisis only confirms the folly of binding a group of disparate countries together in a currency zone with no mechanisms such as a central fiscal authority to regulate its internal imbalances." Now, this is precisely what we wrote more than 10 years ago, so they've learnt the lesson a little bit late. Now, Greece, of course, is the weak link, one of the weak links, because there are others. Italy is not in much better position than Greece, if you look at the figures. Portugal is certainly no better than Greece. Ireland is in desperate trouble, and Spain also is in difficulties. As a matter of fact, one of the problems they face with the Greek crisis is if they don't save Greece, and Greece goes into a default, then there can be a knock-on, a dominoes effect. The next, of course, the speculators, they're like hungry wolves, speculating against currencies, speculating against national economies and so on. They can drag whole national economies down, which is what they're doing to Greece at the present time.
Do you think that even the richer countries and the stronger countries like Germany or France would also be in same kind of state?
Well, not immediately Germany and France, but certainly, I've already said, Spain would be on the list, Portugal would be next, Italy would be next, and even Britain. You see, even Britain with the colossal debts, they are seriously discussing the possibility. The pound is already under attack by the same speculators. They sense that there is weakness, and therefore they sell, they unload pounds, therefore they land the British economy in difficulties. And incredibly, even America, according to the latest estimates, is not entirely out of danger. So if the Greek economy is allowed to go down, there can be a knock-on effect with the most serious effects you can imagine. It's a bit like what happened in Asia, if you remember, in 1998,
yes,
where you had a chain of a chain of crises, of whole economies being dragged. That can happen in Europe. It could even happen in the United States of America in the next period. It's possible.
Well, now let's talk about a bit about Latin America, because you have become kind of a household name there thanks to a few journalists who...
If I might, before we proceed, there's just one other observation. You mentioned Angela
Merkel.
Now, there's an interesting question. You see, the German capitalists are in a problem. They're in a dilemma. On the one hand, they're being asked to bail out Greece, which they're very reluctant to do. They say, well, why should we help the Greeks? And so, but if they don't help the Greeks, then of course the situation will be very serious for the whole of Europe. And therefore I believe at the end of the day they will be forced to help, but they will only do so on condition that the Greek government, which is supposed to be a socialist government, the PASOK won their elections a few months ago by a big majority, but it's not carrying out a socialist policy, and now they will force them to carry out a series of deep cuts of pensions, particularly pensions of health, of education, and so on. This will cause serious problems in Greece and other countries where they will attempt to do the same thing.